Hi there, and welcome to part 9 of my series going over all the music in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. We've got several yummy tracks to cover today, so let's dive right in. Now that Calm has calmed down a bit, we can return to the hamlet and pick up some side quests from the bulletin board. The first one involves tracking down a mercenary for the mayor. He sends us out of town, where we discover a more barren region ravaged by Midgar's overconsumption of Mako. And speaking of Midgar, once you enter this region, a new yet familiar track begins to play. This is a new instrumental arrangement of Final Fantasy VII Remake's vocal theme, Hollow, written by Nobuo Uematsu. This version is Tadayoshi Makino's first arrangement for Rebirth, but even if you don't recognize his name, if you've played Remake, Makino is likely already in your good books, since he's the one who arranged not just one, but two of the very best boss themes in Remake. The first is Genova Quickening, arguably the most impactful and popular moment in Remake. The second is, well, I was going to talk about the second one a bit later anyway, so let's put a pin on that one for now. Tadayoshi Makino is a fantastic arranger with a noticeably darker and moodier sound than the Shimas and Nakamuras of the world, which means his tracks have successfully carved out their own niche within the Remake trilogy's pantheon of sounds. Makino holds an interesting connection with Reo Uratani, whom we covered in the last episode. Not just because they both used to work at Capcom, scoring several Monster Hunter games together, they were also in Black Loot, an in-house band that did hard rock arrangements of Monster Hunter music that they would play at concerts and various other events. Since Uratani and Makino have both left Capcom, that seems to have put an end to Black Loot. But if the Black Mages ever need to fill an opening or two, I can think of two great candidates. The Capcom Square Enix connections are pretty interesting. During his time at Capcom, Makino also worked with gameplay designers Ryota Suzuki and Teruki Endo on various Monster Hunter and Dragon's Dogma titles, all of whom would eventually leave Capcom and join Square, with Suzuki becoming the combat director of Final Fantasy XVI and Teruki Endo becoming the combat director of the Remake trilogy. So if you're wondering why Square Enix suddenly started putting out the best action games on the planet, thank Square's allegedly less toxic work environment. Anyhow, the original version of Hollow, sung by Yosh of the Japanese rock band Survive Said the Prophet, bucked Uematsu's 2-decade-long trend of only using female vocalists for a Final Fantasy vocal theme. This gives Hollow quite a different feel from its predecessors, but I think it suited the tone of Remake perfectly. This track here isn't called Hollow, it's called Hollow Skies, Midgar region. Hollow Skies is already the name of another instrumental version of Hollow from Remake, though that one was much more subdued and a little bit haunting. This Midgar region arrangement is at the perfect crossroads between Fukui's Hollow and Nishiki's Hollow Skies. Makino keeps the ponderous, melancholy strings from Skies and embellishes them further. His fuller band setup mimics Hollow's drum kit, electric guitar, while using his bigger strings and brass section as a substitute for Yosh's vocals. Special shout out to the electric piano, replacing the original's regular piano and adding a bit of levity to the arrangement. Triggering a battle in the Midgar region causes Hollow Skies to shift into its battle variant, which includes added percussion and rhythmic strings to suitably ramp the track's intensity. Throughout Remake, Makino made excellent use of the electric guitar, but in Hollow Skies its use is more subtle. In the field variant it replaces Hollow's harmonica and occasionally doubles the lead trumpet, while in the battle variant its distorted chugging doubles the freneticism of the rhythmic strings. This isn't my favorite Makino arrangement, but it's still very good. I find he's best when doing high-octane, shred-heavy boss tracks and the dark and mysterious brooding tracks. That said, returning to this life-depleted terrain close-ish to where Hollow played in Remake is a nice callback. Overall, the track and its implementation gets a thumbs up from me. Deeper into the Midgar region, we reach our destination, and it's the pesky mercenary wannabe Kyrie. Surprise! She has her own theme too. I would not have been heartbroken if Kyrie had remained a quirk unique to Remake, but alas, she is here again. Luckily, her theme is doing some heavy lifting on her character development. The bright, doubled acoustic guitar and the strings in the intro immediately gives the track a somewhat psychedelic 60s feel, made even more explicit with the reverse guitar textures. The verse's main piano melody is fine, but I find the tone of the tambourine that plays in time with the piano a bit grating in the mix. It's panned a bit to the right, and at least for my baby ears, feels a bit too bright. It reminds me of the hubbub about the bright jangling of metals on Jill's outfit in Final Fantasy XVI whenever she would walk around. A small set of players found that sound absolutely maddening, while the majority didn't even notice it. I'm guessing this tambourine sound is similarly a non-issue to most players, so I won't spend too much time on it, but yeah, I hate this sound. But I quite like the melody itself, especially the second half on the electric guitar, where the tambourine dips out. The pre-chorus build-up on the synth sounds good as well. But the chorus itself is maybe a touch too cheesy for me. A little cheesy, a little grating, quirks I'm very willing to forgive when we are talking about a theme song for Kyrie, of all characters, so overall it works quite well. As expected of Mitsuto Suzuki, the production and instrumentation variety, aside from that tambourine, is fantastic. The whole post-chorus section is great too. After Kyrie all but volunteers you to do her job, you set off to find materials for her quest. Along the way, encountering an enemy triggers a battle variant of her theme, although this track does not dynamically fade in based on where you're at in Kyrie's theme. The battle theme always starts from the beginning, since the structures of the two tracks are a little bit too different. This version has a bubbly, party rockin' feel to it that, again, totally fits Kyrie. Remake veteran Naoyuki Honzawa arranged this version of the track. Like Tadayoshi Makino, if you've played Remake, Honzawa is probably in your good books too, having arranged pretty much all the best high-octane electronica tracks from that game. Between High Five, Smash 'em Rip 'em, Good Morning Leprechaun, to name just a few, Honzawa is a banger factory, and in a game teeming with underrated arrangers, he might just clinch the spot for most underrated. His non-remake discography, just like Kengo Tokusashi's, whom we covered in episode 6, is tightly connected to Mitsuto Suzuki's history, having worked on the likes of the Final Fantasy XIII trilogy, Mobius Final Fantasy, and Schoolgirl Strikers. Like with Makino, Honzawa's accomplishments on Remake will be extremely hard to top. I look forward to hearing the rest of their contributions. Anyhow, back to Kyrie. How about that meow-like attack on the synth at this point here? It's so ridiculous. It's so perfect. I also love the low-pass breakdown at this point here. I keep expecting Kyrie to start talking through this section through like a telephone filter or something, like a bridge or an intro from a 90s pop song.
I really had a lot of fun spending time with you, so we'll be in touch, right? Let's all meet up again sometime. I'm going to be a proper lady someday. Let's do this! Persona!
Returning to Calm and speaking to the mayor to cash in Kyrie's side quest triggers a new Quest Complete jingle. Unless someone has a better suggestion, I think this line is taken from the prelude. That's neat. We've still got a few side quests to churn through, so let's keep going. Upon leaving Calm and returning to the Grasslands, a new version of the Final Fantasy VII main theme replaces the version from Remake we covered in Episode 7. User FF7Music2319, as his name implies, a veritable fount of Final Fantasy VII music trivia, pointed out to me that the change to this new version of the main theme is tied to activating several Remnawave towers, so when exactly this new version triggers will vary from one player to the next. Anyhow, this is the proper Grasslands field theme, a lovely, even jauntier version of the main theme by Shotaro Shima. It has an uplifting feel, and the woodblocks, for whatever reason, make me think of Robin Hood and adventuring within a luscious forest, which feels apt for the optimistic greenery of the Grasslands. The lead melody alternates between a solo trumpet, a clarinet or English horn, and a lovely flute section. A few minutes ago, I mentioned that the battle version of Kyrie's theme does not dynamically match up with the non-battle version. For The Grasslands A New Journey Begins, not only does it smoothly transition into the Grasslands area battle theme we covered in Part 7, but Shotaro Shima went the extra mile, nay, the extra light year, by composing additional interstitials for the track to even more smoothly transition out of the battle track and back into the field theme again. I discussed a similar effect in Part 7 when you first reach the swamp. Little touches like these are 100% unnecessary, but 100% proof that Shima is operating on a whole other plane of existence. Good God! Anyhow, our next side quest leads us to a lone cabin atop a cliff just outside of Calm. A bluesy track starts up as we enter the shack dedicated to all things Queen's Blood. This is a three-piece arrangement of electric guitar, drums, and bass that isn't featured on the official soundtrack, but track 5 of Disc 4, Queen's Blood Card Challenges, arranged and composed by Mitsuto Suzuki and Tsuyoshi Sekito, is identical to this one here, except with a rollicking bluesy piano, a more enthusiastic drummer, and a second verse with a more distorted guitar. This stripped-down cabin version is otherwise identical, so I think we can safely assume it's the same two arrangers. Tsuyoshi Sekito is a Square Enix, or should I say Squaresoft, veteran, having worked on a lot of the weirder non-Final Fantasy stuff Square used to put out, like Brave Fencer Musashi, The Last Remnant, and Mindjack. But also at this point is a staple in the Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts series as well, providing many arrangements in both those series. Winding the clock even further back, Sekito was on the Konami sound team, where he worked on a little game called Metal Gear 2. So clearly the man has the pedigree, though in recent years, when I think of Sekito, I mostly think of guitars. In interviews, he's quick to point to his large selection of guitars and speaks at length of his passion for the instrument. I'm sure that's him playing the guitar in this Queen's Blood track, and you can hear his playing throughout Remake, such as in the heavy metal Electric Executioners, or in various phases of Intermission's masterpiece, The Runaround. There's not too much to say about this bluesy Queen's Blood track. We'll revisit it in a dozen or so episodes with the fuller arrangement anyway, so let's keep moving. The man in the cabin challenges you to a game of Queen's Blood, which you have to win to continue the side quest. We've covered the main Queen's Blood theme, as well as the tracks that play when you win or lose, but user Timaram26 pointed out to me that there's also a unique version of the theme that plays when you tie. Whoa, I don't think I ever tied in my first playthrough. Nice find, and I'm willing to bet that's Tsuyoshi Sekito on the guitar again. Anyhow, with that questline done, your next side quest objective involves picking flowers for Chloe back at the Chocobo Ranch. Reaching the flowery field and dispatching the nearby monsters triggers a beautiful piece from Remake. This first plays when exploring the Sector 5 rooftops with Aerith, one of the more tender moments from Remake and from the original 1997 game where this track originates. This Shima version is, say it with me, beautiful and faithful, although I miss the xylophone-like sound patch that Uematsu used in the original, more so than the piano, Shima's safer substitute. It gave the original version a lot of character and helped juxtapose the track with the main version of Aerith's theme, which is piano-based. But maybe it didn't work as well with a real xylophone, and that's why he's using a piano instead. Maybe on one of Shima's hard drives he's got a demo version of the track with a xylophone. Square. In 2030, once you've run out of Final Fantasy VII Remake series music to sell, start putting out the unused demos like they included in the collector's edition of the Final Fantasy XVI soundtrack. You know Shima's probably sitting on a couple hundred tracks that never saw the light of day in-game, and I would be there day one. With Chloe's Floral Crown quest complete, we next make our way to Oliver's farm, where we are tasked with tracking a scent that even Red 13 struggles with. It's time to call on our big loyal bird. The hunt is on, along with another variation of the Chocobo theme. Like our stealthy Chocobo track from episode 7, this one is quite varied and playful. I would guess this track's arranger is the same as that one too. I don't know what else to say about this one. It's fun. It is, by my count, our 6th variation of the Chocobo theme in this chapter alone. Work on. With Oliver's problems dealt with, we have one last green tier side quest before Cloud and Co. can move on with their lives. Calm's innkeeper, Broden, needs a favor involving the windmills near the coast of the grasslands. Speaking with his old pal at the destination, we find out we need to make some sort of crank to get the windmills moving again, but alas, said crank needs a piece of a Quetzalcoatl talon, or something. I'll be honest, these side quest descriptions I am doing from memory, so please forgive me if I'm fudging some of the nuance. Anyhow, we eventually find the Quetzalcoatl's nest. But before we engage with the enemy, Mai pops up to give us the lowdown on the creature, just as she does when we're about to engage with any of the World Intel creatures. Except this time it doesn't play the usual track we covered in the last episode. Instead, it plays this. The beginning of this track shows up in Remake. You can hear it at the very beginning of the Abzu encounter in the sewers. But in the Remake version, it quickly shifts into a more dramatic battle section. The Rebirth version never goes there, instead developing into a full track revolving around this intro idea. Actually, I have a faint memory of this longer version showing up in Remake as well, but a relatively quick scan of the Remake score revealed no such track. Am I forgetting something? Anyhow, this Rebirth variant of the Abzu intro, assuming it is a Rebirth exclusive, has quite a few leitmotifs. Obviously, we have Let the Battles Begin on the percussive strings right from the jump, but the brass counter melody on top of it is from Shinra. Afterward, we even get a bit of the live stream as well. That's kind of weird. Let the Battles Begin makes sense since the battle is about to begin. And I guess you could say the live stream motif fits with the fact that we are doing all sorts of open world stuff. And what is the world if not nature? And what is nature if not the live stream or something? But Shinra? Really? That one leaves me scratching my head. Unless Suzuki is subtly hinting that Mai is spying on us, Reeves style. Come to think of it, maybe Square won't have any unused tracks to sell us in 2030, since they're instead finding places to slot them into Rebirth and in Remake Part 3. That's probably a smarter move anyway. When we are ready to engage with the Quetzalcoatl, it plays the other iconic remake boss track by Tadayoshi Makino I alluded to at the beginning of this episode. The double kick drum heavy metal shred heaven of the Airbuster is perfection. I won't spend too much time on this one since it is a remake track, but sweet baby Tidus is it glorious. One of my sole complaints with Square Enix's recent initiative of one-off boss themes is the tracks are so long and sophisticated, but you usually only get to experience them once or twice across your entire playthrough, which isn't nearly enough time to wrap your head around what you're listening to. This is especially noticeable in Capcom's Final Fantasy XVI and also in Capcom's Final Fantasy VII Remake, with the Airbuster being a perfect example of this. If an average playthrough of Remake is about 40 hours, i.e. 2400 minutes, and the boss fight against the titular Airbuster lasts about 24 minutes, that means listening to Makino's The Airbuster accounts for 1% of your entire Remake experience. That is way too low. Compare that to Final Fantasy VII's Fight On, which the Airbuster is based on and plays during 99% of the game's bosses. Listen, I'm no math guy, but by the end of FF7, you sure as remembered Fight On. This is a long-winded way of saying I'm glad to see the Airbuster makes a return in Rebirth. What a track. With the still warm Quetzalcoatl Talon now in your possession, we can now make the crank, which in turn gets the windmills moving again. Yay! Upon our return to Calm, Red 13 notices something off about Broden, which triggers a sparse ambient track, our last for today. Ominous synth pad textures and the piano occasionally playing C and B flat. Not sure what to make of that. Don't want to read too much into it. If anything, the out-of-place Shinra motif from a couple tracks ago should be extracted and added into this piece instead. The track adds another stinger before eventually fading away to nothing. Going from the Airbuster to this is a bit of a hard pivot, but that is the Rebirth music analysis promise. Out here we love them pivots. And that's where we're going to leave it for today. Also, big news. Square just put out a new Rebirth soundtrack. Alas, it isn't the Plus soundtrack, but it is what they are calling the Gold Saucer and Minigame disc, which, as the name implies, features some of the missing tracks that were featured in, you guessed it, the Gold Saucer and other minigames. I've imported the disc and I look forward to giving it a listen, but also I really hope this sort of piecemeal one disc at a time release is not indicative of how they are going to treat the remaining music. It's going to be so much costlier this way. please, Square, release the Plus soundtrack. I speculated a few episodes ago that, using hard science and math, they will announce the Plus soundtrack in November. November is really soon. Don't let me down, Square. Apologies for this latest episode taking longer to get out. I decided a couple weeks ago I wanted to make a video in time for the launch of Metaphor ReFantasio, but I underestimated just how much I wanted to say about its composer, Shoji Meguro. So that video is still in the cooker. It'll likely be out before part 10 of Rebirth, but we shall see. Either way, stay tuned. Okay, till next time, bye.